just like that, the Raiders and me, candidly, Eric Allen, are on summer vacation. Thank you for hanging out with us for another episode of Upon Further Review, brought to you by the good people at Coors Light. And Eric Allen is in the house. Anytime EA is here is a great day. Been a busy week for you. We got Media Day on Monday.
Awesome.
Just wrapped up minicamp. How are you doing, sir? So good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see the guys. Good to see you and everybody in our department. You know, it's always optimistic around this time for the teams, but I think when we're talking about just us, it's great. You know, hey, everyone's back, everyone's excited, and it was a great minicamp. And I love the energy that from day one. You know, the buy-in, even going back to OTAs, just 100% buy-in, having your stars, you know, really show action, being here early, staying late, those kind of things to kind of help AP continue that what we all understand is that Raider mentality is back in the building.
And I'm glad you brought up the stars, and we'll talk about Max and Avante here in a sec. But, like, when you go back to your playing days, and I know it's a different CBA, it was a different time, but, like, ideally, like, what did you want to get out of a mini camp, right? Knowing that it's the last thing before the summer break, like, what was on the EA checklist?
Yeah, it was more mental stuff, just making sure the mindset was correct coming off of last season. No matter what happened, if we're a playoff team, if we weren't in the playoffs, AFC Championship game. So I'll give you the 2000 season. We're coming off, you know, a loss in the AFC Championship game. So we're close, you know. So every time you come to OTAs or mini camps or anything, you want to have a spirit of, man, you know what, we got to work to get right back there. There's no, you know, woe is me. There's no victims. You know what, you just have to make sure that all those things mentally that you were going through the offseason, every practice, you want to make sure you cross some of that anger and that frustration out. So that's really important with any football team if you haven't won the championship.
You know, and just in terms of, like, the very basic attendance of it all, right? Yeah. And I know that mandatory is the first word in front of minicamp this time of the year. But, like, all the same, I mean, we look across the league, right, EA? And there's guys that have, for whatever reason, elected not to show up for mandatory minicamp.
Right.
Not the case here in Vegas. How important is that just to have bodies in the seats, man? Like, when these guys are going through practice and then doing the film study, going through team meeting, and you got everyone that's supposed to be here.
Yeah, I think that's so important for the coaching staff. To be able to develop, and particularly this coaching staff, because what they have proven that they develop players throughout the weeks, and they want to focus on things for players now that you can get better. So if it's, and I keep saying, you know, like Luke Masterson, this is a really big year for him to be able to show that, you know, he can be a solid backup, and if Spillane or Divine goes down, he can step in. So it's important for him to get that great work. And figure out how to be coached and how to prove that, okay, you can tell me A, B, and C in the film room, and it takes me to go out and prove it on the practice field. So then when we come in on that next day, it's like, man, that was an improvement. I told you to make sure, you know, if we have 3 receivers on one side and 1 receiver on the back side, maybe slide a little bit to that single receiver side so you can help that corner with the slant route. So, you know, you get that kind of coaching, and then you have to go out and prove it. And so all these young players, it's so important for those guys to kind of identify those things they need to work on and show it in practice so the coaches are familiar with, hey, okay, it took me 1 time or 2 times to tell him, and he was able to go in and execute.
You know, I'm glad you brought up Luke, but, like, just for the young players in general, like, is there value in just leaving a good impression on the coaching staff before you break for the summer?
Man, that's what it's about. You know, if you're Devontae, you're just going
you're
out.
Chilling,
you're working
man.
on your craft, right? You're working on your craft. You're talking to the young guys. But if you're a backup receiver, you know, along with the special teams emphasis that you're able to get in here, because emphasis on special teams is a priority in the offseason. So you want to really solidify your spot in that order. But if you're, you know, like I said, if you're the 3rd or 4th guy, you have to make an impression every time you have the opportunity. And I think that these guys are understanding that. And with the coaching staff's emphasis on competition, it's easier to do it in this type of environment than it would be in an environment where everyone's chill and you know your spot and things like that.
I mean, being uncomfortable is not a bad thing sometimes. Not a bad thing.
You know what? That's kind of the new coaching phrase.
Style, yeah.
Yeah, the last couple years, hey, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And yeah, it's true. You have to be. But you have to find a way. It goes back to you know your strengths, but you got to make sure your weaknesses become a strength. And that's what's important.
We were talking earlier about just like this is such a fun time of year, such an optimistic time of year. Yeah. Everyone's undefeated. Like in our case, everyone's here, everyone's healthy, all the important stuff, right? But I thought that, you heard from the team leaders this week. You heard from Maxx, you heard from Devontae. And I found it interesting, EA. They both essentially, in their own ways, said the same thing, right? They both said, hey, you can talk about how great we're going to be, how not great we're going to be. It doesn't matter, right? Like, and I think Maxx in particular, this kind of, I don't want to say like a new version of Maxx, but a more mature, more veteran Maxx is like, it doesn't matter, right? You can say we're going to be a top 10 defense. That's great. It's the middle of June. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So,
right.
Like, how important is it for those guys, the dudes that set the tone for everything in this building, the Maxxes, the Devontaes, to be like, hey, we're here to work. Whatever you guys say, like, that's great. That's your prerogative. That's your job to talk about us. But, like, it's kind of miss us with that in mid-June.
Yeah. I think that's awesome to have a leader like Maxx who, we had the opportunity on Monday, to sit down and talk to 14, 15 guys.
Crazy. Shout out our PR staff, too, by the way.
Man, it's shout out to the PR staff. They did a great job. And just the same message. It didn't matter if you were a young guy or an old guy. It was about putting in the work. It was about making sure that you were in the meeting rooms and you guys were connecting, you guys were bonding, finding ways to get better. Everyone, to a man, was speaking on those terms. And that's so important that first the head coach sets the tempo, sets the tenor, sets the tone, but the players have to carry that on. And at this point, I think Coach Antonio feels very comfortable that tone is set and the players are buying in and they bought in. And that's why Christian and Maxx are here early and, the quarterbacks are here early and they stay until late. They're getting their workouts in. Everyone's healthy. So those things that you have to do to be a successful football team, they're accomplishing all those things in May and in June.
It's interesting, right? We think about AP as being the head coach for, really since November, right?
Yeah.
But in a technical sense, right, he has been the head coach. We took the interim tag off.
Right.
And this is his first offseason program as the head coach. Just from, I guess, like a logistical continuity standpoint, how important is it for him and these new additions to the staff? And there's a lot of folks that are still here from 2023, but how important is it for him to get his staff on the same page, and how valuable is it that they can do it now in mid-June and they're not, kind of working from behind in November?
Yeah, I think it's been an incredible job. It's how can I say? So AP's a great dude. We worked together for a long time at ESPN. We'd have to do shots together on the radio, television. So you got to have a rapport with your guy. You're not going to practice what you're going to say, but you got to have a kind of rapport going back to back. It's the same thing with his coaching style now and the coaches that he has brought on, the Marvins and the guys who are able to, kind of give him some direction, because this is the first time he's running the training camp. He has to set the times of practice, when to go, all those things.
Yeah.
Outside of coaching guys, you're coaching coaches. You're setting up the culture of an iconic brand. And for your first time and being a young guy at that, he's doing a really good job. And I think he has a lot of great people around him to help him and to kind of, the guardrails are off, obviously, because this is your job and you've had some experience at that. But I think he's doing a great job by surrounding himself with people that he respects and are respected around the National Football League. And I think this is the best way for him to get it done.
And one thing that I've respected from AP from day one, but really now we see it in an official capacity, is his willingness to bring people in that know a little bit more than him in certain areas, right? And not to cast aspersions on anyone, but it's like sometimes in life you see people that are too proud, too whatever, to ask for not help, but to say, hey, you have an expertise in this area. I would love to pick your brain. So I think to see him have that willingness now to have a Joe Philbin, you talked about Marvin, to have these guys that have been coaches in the league that have done it. Rob Ryan's another guy that's stuck around. To have these guys in the building, to me, that's incredibly refreshing. That's incredibly important. And the fact that he's leaning into those guys, if you're a fan of this team, you have to feel great about that.
Yeah, I'll bring another name to you. Joe's been great. Marvin's been great. The other day, first day I went out and guys walking upstairs, I'm like, hey, how you doing? I'm Eric Allen. And he looks up, and it's Al Luganville. Al Luganville recruited me from San Diego, right? He's been around the National Football League for probably 30 or 40 years in all types of different capacities. And he evaluates the evaluators. Like when you're evaluating a player, he gives you some background. And the meeting in college with him and AP was like, you know what? That's a resource. That's someone that can help me evaluate players, evaluate coaches. And so those are kind of people that he's bringing around the organization who are here just to kind of help him and give him, you know, a crumb here or a crumb there to kind of help him advance, you know, what it is to be a head coach in the National Football League. And he's not ashamed of that. And that's the great thing about his coaching style and his philosophy. And sometimes, you know, when you're when you're head of the table, when you're the dad or whatever, it's difficult to ask for help, right? Because you're supposed to, everyone's coming to you.
Yeah, you get the big piece of meatloaf for a reason, right?
Right, yeah,
you get the big piece.
That's right. So you do at points humble yourself a little bit. Hey, man, you know what? I've been in this game. I have success in this game. But, yes, I don't know everything. So there are some situations that I'm going to be in, time clock, end of the games, those situations that I need some help in. And I know those situations are going to come up, and I need to be successful at that because this game is really all about situations. We talk a little about situational football. So important in today's game. If you can find a way to be successful in each situation, then you're going to be the team that wins at the end of the day.
You know, I got to ask you about the defense since we got you here, right? Our resident DB. And I was joking with you the other day, man. I was like, every time I looked over, you're a little closer and closer to the huddle. I feel like we were maybe like one guy tweaking a hammy from him, like, hey, we got size 11s for EA? Let's go. Let's go to work, baby. Give me a good series. Give me a good period. When you look at the defense, right, I mean, we talked about it a lot, the heart and soul of this team, what they were able to do last year. Candidly, come in, it felt like out of nowhere and becoming one of the best defenses that's been in this building for 2 decades, 3 decades. Like, what have you seen kind of early on in your impressions of the group out there?
Man, that front is amazing. They're just getting after guys, and they're setting the tone for practice. You know, we all talk about Maxx a lot. He's the face of just not this franchise, but one of the faces of the National Football League. And the energy level is there. And then you have Kuntz on the other side, the great dip, and the end of the season that he had was just spectacular. The coaching staff finding gems in him. Hey, you can't do everything. You may not be the greatest stop in the run, but let's use your assets that you can rush the passer and put you on the opposite side of Maxx. So now teams are going to be able just to focus on. And you bring in Christian. He has the same up-tempo and passion about football as Maxx. So you have those type of guys. Tyrese seems to be a kind of guy who you can move inside, outside. We all talked about the different packages that he can be successful with. So up front, that's where it starts, and it's been just great to see that energy level and those guys get off the ball. I love Spillane. He's just one of those ballers, just can kind of do a little bit of everything. He's out practice, screaming at folks and talking. And then on the back end, I think safety-wise, it was a big jump last year. I think Epps was pretty much always in the right position. Trey did a great job. I thought he settled down, had a really good season. I think this is going to be his breakout season this year. And then JJ, man, what can you say? As every practice, I would at least try, and when he's in, I would be in the end zone, but I would be facing him, like I was in his position, and just kind of thinking, like, what would I do in this situation? Every time he's on the money. He's so competitive. His juices are always flowing. I love the way Jack plays football, and we just continue to kind of build on him. And then the other corner, we got to find out. We got to find out who that guy is going to be. Bennett from last year had some struggles, but that's going to be a position to where in training camp, we're going to figure out who's going to be that guy on the opposite side of Jack, and then we all know Nate is a baller inside.
And I'm so glad you brought up Nate, because hearing him talk the other day, and again, like, I mean this in the best possible way, like, hearing him talk, it felt like there was a different level of maturity to kind of what he was talking about, right? He was talking about how Gardner got him on a pump fake, and he's like, really pissed me off as he pointed at me afterwards. But like, it just felt like he has not only a better understanding of what Patrick Graham wants him to do, but a better understanding of what he's going to be asked to do in a team sense, right? Like, we all think of Nate in a great way as a young guy.
Right.
He's now a veteran player in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So there's a level of expectation that comes with that, especially when you flash the kind of excellence that he has. So to me, he's a guy that I'm so excited to see what he's going to do in 2024. Not only like on the field as this ball hawk, corner, but as a dude who can kind of set the tone with a Maxx, with the Christian Wilkins defensively for the group as a whole.
Yeah, when you look at him in street clothes, you wouldn't think he'd be the kind of guy who he basically plays will linebacker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many teams that play with 3 receivers that he's going to be in the box. And I've checked him out, and he does a really good job with edge responsibilities. And that's difficult to be a corner and have to secure the edge at times against a fullback, against a tight end, hold your edge and force that ball back inside. He has a couple really good alternative moves where he'll give you like a hands and then he'll dip under you to secure the edge. But from a running game standpoint, that is essential for a defense to say we can play with the nickel and we're not really giving away a lot in the run category. And that's so important. I think he's so much better, has a greater feel inside than he does outside. I mean, because of some of your physical attributes, your positives when it comes down to your measurables. For him, better inside. He's a little stronger. He doesn't have to really worry about covering the out route or covering the post.
And no fear, man.
And no fear.
Yeah.
No fear in the running game. And I just really think he's an asset when you put him along with Spillane and Devine in the box. So I think this is going to be another big year opportunity for him, because I think when you go from inside to outside, I think it was the second year they tried to kind of do that. It's like,
and it felt like it almost felt like he was kind of a victim of his own success a little bit, right?
Exactly.
Because this guy is so good. He's so talented. We have to find a way to keep him on the field as much as we can, right? Which is great, which is a great position to be in. But all the same, like, you kind of got to figure out, like, where does he fit in the grand scheme of things, right?
And I think now they understand, like, he fits inside. He's our slot corner. He's our nickel guy. We're going to play with them, 85, 90% of the time. And then the times when we're facing a team, it's okay. We'll have him on the sideline or we'll figure out a spot. And that brings me to Brandon Faison. Big year for him.
Yep.
This is a big year for him.
Friend of the program. We like him a lot.
Yeah, we like him a lot. He has to show up, and hopefully he can be that guy that solidifies that other side. And so now you have a defense that can really begin where they ended last year.
And I know it doesn't mean anything, EA, but hypothetically, if you line up Brandon Faison, Nate, and Jack Jones, that looks like an NFL secondary in 2024.
It does.
Like, if you say, what do these 3 guys do for work? And be like, oh, they're corners in the NFL.
Yeah. And with a pretty good history, if we turn on the film, of some good playing. I mean, Nate, a couple years ago, he graded out really high inside. The year that Brandon played with us, I mean, it was a productive year.
Very much so.
Yeah, got a productive year.
And people forget, EA, this guy literally, I want to say he came off the street, but he was in midseason acquisition.
Yes.
So he started Sunday in Los Angeles.
That's right.
And then you flip forward to Thursday, and he's wearing silver and black.
Yeah.
So, he didn't have the benefit of the offseason program. He didn't have the benefit of understanding on a really granular level what the defense looks like, how it's supposed to feel. And this guy came in and played really, really well.
He did. So there's some definite positives coming off of last year, what you're able to do, and the concepts, the coaching styles are completely different. Even though you can cover, you can call, cover 4 or whatever from 2 years ago to now, but the emphasis on route combinations are different. When you're out there coaching, you're saying, hey, here's what you need to be looking for in this situation. We're going to rep this over and over. I think that's the difference in coaching philosophy from 2 years ago to now. It's just you're getting a different coaching style. They're coaching for that player to be able to take ownership of what you're trying to accomplish on the football field.
And I feel like again, in a great way, like if you're Patrick Graham, you kind of feel validated in there's a method to the madness, right? Where you can say, guys, if we did everything X, Y, and Z way, we did it the way that I want it done. And look what happened last year, right? So you can fall back on that and be like, we know it works. Trust the process, for lack of a better term. And if we do that, then we're going to have this, hopefully 10x in 2024.
Yeah, you have to, because I think he's one of those rising stars.
Me too.
And after this year, I'm pretty sure he's going to get some head coaching looks somewhere because of what he was able to consistently build on, and his coaching style is a little freer now. I think he's a really solid guy. All the guys have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and they play for him. And that's just not banter talk. It's just not banter. I mean, there's some coaches that you really play for and you really respect, and you want to go out and perform well and help them get to that next level, And then there's other coaches you just kind of like, yeah, man, he's my coach, and I'm going to go out and do my thing.
Well, think about this. AP brought him back for a reason, right? You know what
right.
I mean? If you're the new head coach, you have every opportunity to say, hey, I want my guys in this position, that position, and this position.
That's right.
And Patrick Graham back in 2024.
Yeah, that's right.
But
sure.
before we get you out of here, we now enter officially the summer break. I assume you're going to go on vacation. I'm going to go on vacation. It'll be a great, wonderful time. From a player's perspective, though, what did you really want to kind of accomplish in, let's call it these 6 weeks that you have to yourself before we go off to camp?
So for me, I took my vacation right after, hopefully a Pro Bowl.
Sure.
So I would just kind of extend that. So it was February, March, and then, you start to get back to it in April. So I already took my, my vacations and stuff. This time was really about making sure that all of those little details that I wanted to work on, I was just securing those things, whether it's like in corner, you have a false step, or a kick step. And I want to make sure all those little details, techniques-wise, I was doing that. And then, of course, if I was playing Jerry, if you look on the schedule and, hey, we have Jerry Rice week, 1 through 4, then I'm going to spend this time going through all of the routes that he ran. So I'm going to have my book wherever I'm in. If I'm at the crib, whatever, I'm just going to kind of go over the playbook a little bit about, what routes he ran, his first 15 scripted. So it's really from the neck up, from now until training camp for me. That's what I would usually do. And just making sure conditioning-wise, that was big for me, is I wanted to be able to play all day. So I'm going to run gassers, go run in the beach, run the hills, just the little details to keep you on top of the hill.
It's still so wild to me how casually you just reference going against Jerry Rice. You're like, it's just like, I'm looking at the schedule, and when Jerry Rice is coming to town.
You had to be like Jerry, maybe Chris Carter at a point. Because those guys, they were so good that you wanted to make sure, and you knew, it was going to be on TV. We're going to be Monday night, or it's going to be Sunday night. It's going to be on 2, so you want to make sure your boys were able to, after the game, EA did his thing.
Well, you did your thing for 99 times out of 100. You did your thing. But, hey, man, it was so good to see you. I'm so glad we got you out here for the week.
Yeah.
We're going to wake up, dude. We're going to go for a nice little nap. I'm going to wake up, and it's going to be time for training camp. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. Do try to enjoy your time away, though, a little bit.
Yeah, I will.
Enjoy the time away. We all got to enjoy it, because we know end of July, we're going to wake up and be like, all right, we'll see you in February.
That's right. But at least we'll be in Costa Mesa.
That's right. That's right. Yes, we will. So, hey, man, it was so good to see you. Best of luck. Enjoy the vacation. We'll see you in a little bit.
Sounds good, my man.